Hello everyone. I'm just going to make a quick video today sharing with you some of the books I brought back with me from my trip to Washington, D.C. And yeah, this was my first time going to Washington, D.C. in my life. I was able to go because there was a teacher conference there, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go due to that. And it was four nights the trip was, and so got to run around a little bit. I got to go to the Natural History Museum, the Museum of the American Indian, whatever they call it, and then I walked around a lot of other things. But before I get into the books, I think anyone who's American, or even just anyone who's heard of Washington, D.C., yeah, you always have an image in your head of what it's like supposed to look like in your imagination, and then of course when you get there it always looks different. And that was an interesting experience for me, because the Washington Monument and Lincoln Memorial and all this kind of stuff, and then when you actually get there it has to look different. But it was kind of a surreal experience to see the height of the Washington Monument. And I was somewhat surprised to learn it was made in the late 1800s. And then with the Lincoln Memorial, it was finished in 1922. But a rather ominous detail for me is that when we were there, they had been having an issue with the lights. And we got there a little bit after sundown, and Lincoln was totally dark. And then I, of course, read through the Gettysburg Address, and then his address upon, winning the presidency for the second term. Very spooky with the lights out. And then, I had some good food there, and then, of course, went to some excellent bookstores. The highlight was definitely Second Story Books. I was only able to go to the one on DuPont Circle. I wasn't able to go out to, I believe it's Rockville, where they have their big warehouse. I've heard it's amazing, but really I think I'm glad I couldn't go out there because I went to DC with limited luggage space. I actually was fairly clever this time, and I brought books with me to trade in. And I had, here and there, I had accumulated a couple rarer modern books. Like I had a first printing of All the Pretty Horses. I had a first printing of True Grit, just as an example, that I had found, people didn't really know what they had. And so, and a couple others too. So I brought those with me, and that's my way of making sure I can bring stuff back, is by bringing stuff with me that I'm gonna, give away or trade in when I'm there. Anyway, brought those in, Second Story Books, got some trade-in credit, and I will show you what I got with my trade-in credit. So first, I figured I might as well show you the freaking set I got this time. So yet another set, a massive set of Chinese stuff. So this is The Grand Scribes Records by Sima Qian. And this book is the first work in Chinese historiography. He's the father of Chinese history. His dates are 145 BC to 86 BC. So if you think in a Western, so-called Western context, he's alive from the time of the Gracchi brothers to, when Julius Caesar's career is getting started. You could think of it like that. Cicero too. which I just love thinking of these correspondences like that. But yeah, he set out to write a history of China from the earliest times to his present day. And so that really covers, I mean, it covers the Zhou dynasty, he covers some like kind of legendary stuff too, but the Zhou dynasty, and then all the way to, 100 BC, give or take, which is the first about 100 years of the Han dynasty. There's a figure after him, Ban Gu, who continues his book, kind of like the classical Greek historians would do, Herodotus, and then you'd have Thucydides after, and then, the Roman historians kind of kept adding on. So, of course, Chinese historians did the same thing, but this isn't even a full translation yet. So this is being put out. This is the most recent book that I have, volume 11. Edited by William Nienhauser. He's a powerhouse of sinology in the United States, and this is put out by University of Indiana, or Indiana University Press. And it's partially funded too by Nanjing University Press. I think only this last volume is. I think there's a newer one than this one. This one is 2019. I believe there was also a volume in 2022 that was not in the set that I found at the bookstore. So that would make it 9 volumes. And even then it's not done because I'm missing volumes 3, 4, and 5.2. And then 6, which is, volume 6 is the one that's been printed, but I just don't have. The 3, 4, and 5.2 are just not done yet. They're not out yet. So what is that going to be? It's going to be a 12-volume set when it's all finished of Chinese historiography. Man, is there anything better? Is there anything better than 12 volumes of Chinese historiography? And then, yeah, I will just show you some of the other things I got there, and then kind of a little bonus section on some things I've gotten apart from my DC trip. So to finish my DC trip, I will show you the bookmark for the bookstore I got all this stuff at. So Second Story Books, because it's their 50th anniversary. And this is the location I went to. And then they also have Rockville, Maryland. So as you know, I've been kind of on a medieval kick if you've been watching my recent videos. So I got 2 books in that direction. Scribes and Scholars, A Guide to the Transmission of Greek and Latin Literature. And as it implies, this goes all the way from the book trade of ancient Greece during the time of, let's say, Plato and Aristotle, all the way through a recent interest of mine, Erasmus. Erasmus has his own whole chapter here. And then gets all the way to kind of the late Renaissance, and then later section, chapter 6, on textual criticism. Carolingian Renaissance is in here, early humanism, Petrarch, and so I've been kind of jumping around different chapters here. I don't know, maybe read 50 pages of it, but as I mentioned, just kind of jumping around, so not in order. So excellent book, and this is the 4th edition, which I believe is the most recent edition. So very pleased with that one. And then another book I couldn't help but get is by Abbot Suger. I believe that's how you're supposed to say it, Sugerius. And if you are familiar with that name by sight, this is it here, Sugar. I believe that's where McCarthy got the infamous character from No Country for Old Men. He was an abbot who is the originator of the Gothic architecture design from the Abbey of St. Denis. Saint-Denis, or something like that. And this is a translation of his work about that. So as you see, there's Latin on the left side, and then an English translation on the right, all done by Erwin Panofsky, who is of the Warburg School, by A.B. Warburg, his fame, the Builder Atlas fame. So Panofsky, excellent. Another book of his that I'm really keen on is his work on Albrecht Dürer. So that'll be coming pretty soon, which I think will fit pretty well with my interest in Erasmus. And if you can believe it, Erasmus, as a young man, lived for years in the same town that Hieronymus Bosch did. And he almost certainly met him. Crazy, crazy. It's hard to believe. All right, I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll just show another few books, and then that'll be that. That'll be that, and then we can return to our scheduled programming. So another book I'm thrilled with. I was able to meet one of my friends, Connor, and he was kind enough to give me a copy of Suttree that I'd never seen in the wild before. This is a Picador edition from the 90s. It has a nice, I think this is a picture of the actual bridge in Knoxville. Does it say? Don't think it says, but I believe it is, just from looking at it. But this is not for sale in Canada, so can't sell it in Canada. But anyway, yeah, it was very kind. Thank you, Connor, if you see this. And then last but not least, although these next few are hard to compare with what I just showed, more of my interest in the medieval to Renaissance transition. So I'll just quickly go through these. Evelyn Underhill, she's a well-known scholar in esotericism, mysticism, especially the Middle Ages. And I have the Dover edition of The Cloud of Unknowing. So pretty interested in that. It's a famous work of medieval mysticism. So that's one of there. I also have a book by one of Erasmus's best friends, Thomas More. Now this is not the work he is most famous for, Utopia. I don't have the edition of Utopia that I want, like the precise edition that I want, so I've held off on getting it. But this is Thomas More's kind of theological works and some of his letters that he wrote when he was in prison, about to be executed by Henry VIII. So I was pretty interested to find that. Thomas More was one of those figures that I was like, Thomas More, whatever, Utopia, everyone's heard of Utopia, but truly a fascinating guy. Another book of great medieval intellect, The Prayers and Meditations of Saint Anselm with the Proslogion, if I'm saying that even close. So anyway, Penguin Classics coming through. And yeah, I've heard that Saint Anselm really influenced the style of prayer, which I'm interested for historical reasons, but yeah, it'll fill in some gaps. He's also very influential for ushering works of Arabic scholarship into Western Europe. So that's another thing I'm really interested in, because I've been curious about that. And then finally, a book on the Renaissance. I'm reading Petrarch also right now. And so I thought this book here would be a good addition, and I was able to find a copy at a local bookstore for much cheaper than it goes for if you buy it new. The Crisis of the Early Italian Renaissance. This is published by Princeton, and has a nice little Sharpie mark all the way down the side and the bottom. But it seems like it's completely unread. So I don't know if that's a weird remainder mark or someone just, you know, drew on it and then got rid of it. But very cool book. And one of the guys I'm interested from this early period is Leonardo Bruni. And there's a whole big chapter on Leonardo Bruni in here. So that should be pretty cool. But yeah, anyway, I was able to get most of these for pretty reasonable prices because I brought those books to trade in. So very cool stuff. Well, let me know if you've read any of this, if I should prioritize any of it especially. If you've read Summa Chien in full, definitely send me a message. But even if you haven't, let me know your thoughts. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Death is Gang, boss.